Hey, hi everybody. I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to The Story. It is day 43 of whatever this is now. No, I didn't let my wife cut my hair this weekend. I chickened out. I decided instead to just go ahead and let the mullet grow, and I'm fine with that. They're due to be back anytime now anyway. Somebody told me they're quite popular in Portland, so I'm ready to fit right in. Welcome to The Story. Much like the mullet, we are a perfect blend of business and party, so don't forget to RSVP. Reach out on Facebook or Instagram, email us at thestory@kgw.com, or use Twitter and the hashtag HeyDan. And a lot of those tweets and those emails that we've been getting have been about one thing in particular.
Oregon is also improving options for coronavirus testing.
Anyone who needs a test should be able to get one.
The tests may tell us who's already had the virus, even if they never showed symptoms.
Well, testing has been increasing.
Testing. Look, from the very moment this virus showed up here, we've been talking about testing, mainly the lack thereof and the importance of changing that. Experts and some common sense have told us since the beginning that widespread testing is one of the main ways that we're going to be able to get some semblance of normalcy back in our lives. But a lot of people like Stan Ohl have been asking us, any idea when testing will be available for concerns by the general public about possible infections? Because it kind of does feel like the media talks a lot about how hard it has been to get testing in Oregon, everywhere, as a matter of fact. But the headlines, I can tell you, are changing. Oregon is trying to reach a point where it tests 15,000 people per week, and state epidemiologists think that we are getting pretty close.
Our daily testing capacity has been over 2,000, has been above 1,000 and close to 1,500 every day this week. So we're nearing that 15,000 number right now.
And we mentioned on Friday that the criteria for getting a test has changed. It's a little bit more lax now. It used to be that you had to be extremely sick to even be considered. And even then, we were hearing stories from people who were saying they still couldn't get a test even with severe symptoms. Now, any Oregonians who show symptoms at this point, even mild symptoms, can get a test. People in vulnerable living situations like nursing homes or prisons, they can get a test. There's going to be widespread randomized testing to track the virus in some places as well. So look, you got to still show some symptoms, they say, just not as severely as before. Let's say, for instance, you got that little cough, itchy eyes, you're wondering if it's allergies, but now you want to know for sure, is it COVID-19? How do you get tested? Well, outside of scheduling with a primary care doctor, a lot of urgent cares locally can test you. Zoom, AFC, Legacy Health, and Walgreens, they're all offering tests right now. I had a chance to talk to an AFC rep today. I asked him a question I'm sure a lot of you are wondering too. Let's say I have symptoms and I want to come in and get tested, but the rest of my family doesn't have symptoms, but they're living with me. Can they get tested as well?
Correct. Yes, the answer is yes. And we have tested a lot of families together. Usually one person in the family may have the indications that qualifies the rest of them to be tested.
Providence, OHSU, Legacy hospitals, they're also doing testing. Most of these places do want you to schedule first over the phone. Some are doing drive-through testing as well. If you don't want to go into the doctor's office, that's something that a lot of people have been wanting to do. But they want you to double check online first. Don't just show up. So give them a call, check online. As for the payment, the state did reach an agreement with 8 different insurance companies to waive the copay for the test. You can find a full list of all of them right now at kgw.com. Safe to say there has been some confusion over Governor Brown's latest executive order. So how did we get here? On Friday, the governor signed Executive Order 2024, which extends Oregon's state of emergency for 2 months to July 6th. Then the emails started rolling in. Carol Stanger wanted to know, does that mean nothing will be open until July 6th? First and foremost, no. The state of emergency and stay-at-home order are completely separate things. Governor Brown issued the state of emergency on March 8th. It allows her to take fast action to fight against the outbreak, like deploying personnel or resources. That state of emergency was set to expire this Thursday. So all this new executive order does is extends that deadline to July 6th. As for the stay-at-home order, it went into effect on March 23rd when the governor signed a separate executive order, Executive Order 2012. That order did not list an end date. It just said it will remain in effect, quote, until terminated by the governor. And that's how we got here. All right, time to talk about the big story, which is about that big check that the government sent out to most Americans, or maybe you got a direct deposit. Either way, $1,200 to try and ease some of this pain a little bit, whether it was to pay rent, maybe to pay a big bill, something that was hanging over your head. Well, Kyle Boshi found out about another group of people raking in all that life-saving money. Dead people.
My mother was the epitome of Portland. She loved art, she loved history, she loved nature.
Alice Gustafson is remembered fondly. The beloved wife and mother of 4 passed away in February of 2019. So you can imagine the confusion when a federal stimulus check with Alice's name on it arrived in her daughter's mailbox.
How does my mom, who is not even living, get a stimulus check?
The federal stimulus check for $1,200 included the letters DECD, short for deceased after Alice's name. Clearly, the U.S. Treasury recognized Alice wasn't around anymore, but still sent a check.
What saddens me is there are people who could really use that stimulus check. And they're issuing it to somebody not even alive to use it.
Over the past week, KGW has heard from at least 5 different people whose deceased loved ones received coronavirus relief payments.
She passed on January 8th of 2018.
Cheryl Calm's late mother got a direct deposit.
You'd think that they would be careful. And within their own system, the first thing they would do is they would filter out people who are dead. But they didn't. They've sent checks to dead people.
These unexpected checks have left many family members uneasy and, frankly, a bit confused about what they should do with the money.
I even thought, we could donate it to like a food shelter, but in reality, it doesn't belong to us. It really belongs to the government.
The IRS says it's aware of the situation, but so far hasn't offered any advice. Last month, President Trump said he expected the money to be returned.
If money went out to deceased people, is the government going to get that back?
Yeah, anything that was sent out, it's like sometimes you send a check to somebody wrong. Sometimes people are listed, they die, and they get a check. That can happen.
Sending out stimulus payments has been a Herculean task. The Treasury Department issued more than 89 million direct payments in 3 weeks, and more than 150 million stimulus checks are being sent out. Of those, it's not clear how many payments were made to people who were deceased. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal last week, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said, "We're checking the databases, but there could be a scenario where we miss something, and yes, the heirs should be returning that money. But so far, it's not clear how taxpayers should return the money, or what they should do with the check."
Okay, Kyle Aboshi joining us now. So, Kyle, what are people supposed to do? The government says they want the money back, but they're not really telling you how to give it back. So what's somebody to do in this situation?
That's the big question, right? I talked to a tax lawyer today, also a professor, and he said, listen, it's really a gray area here. It's not clear what to do. So his advice, just hold on. Don't mail that check back to the government, at least not yet. Also, if it's direct deposit, don't go out and spend it. Wait for the dust to settle. There'll be clear directions later on. Then you'll know what to do with the money. But for now, just hang tight.
Got it. Good advice. Kyle Aboshi, thank you. Oregon's primary is just a couple of weeks away. You should have your ballot by now. Oregon has what they call closed primaries. That means if you're registered as a Democrat, you can only vote for Democratic candidates. Same goes if you're registered as a Republican. But Debbie Weaver emailed us very concerned. She said, last year I changed my voter affiliation to independent so I wouldn't get all that junk mail. I received my ballot today and there were no state or federal candidates on it for me to vote for. So this one's for the 112 of you who move to Oregon every day. Here's a little rundown on who people like Debbie can and can't vote for in primary elections. First, a quick rundown of some of the terminology in Oregon because it is a bit confusing and extremely important. Oregon actually has a party called the Independent Party of Oregon, which has its own candidates and primaries, just like Republicans or Democrats. So Debbie is actually what you would call one of those so-called unaffiliated voters in Oregon, and that's different from independent voters. It basically means she's not a member of any political party. Now, in that case, she and the rest of Oregon's unaffiliated voters are left out of a lot of big primaries like the presidential primary, U.S. senators and congressmen, state senators and representatives, secretary of state, treasurer and attorney general, because all of these positions have a political affiliation. Unaffiliated voters can still vote in nonpartisan contests, things like for mayor, city council positions, and in Portland, those are really big races this year. They can also vote for county commissioners, judges, and district attorneys. But these rules are just for the primary. Keep that in mind. Come November, unaffiliated voters can vote in any race, regardless of the letter next to the name. There's also a few measures on the primary ballot, but most of them will come in November because people are still trying to get enough signatures for them to qualify for the general election. See, problem is those signatures, they need to be done in person, and that's, well, it's a little hard right now with all the social distancing. Case in point, the campaign behind Initiative Petition 34 needs about 14,000 more signatures to get on the ballot. That's the measure that would legalize psychedelic mushrooms in Oregon. They say they were actually ahead of schedule on signature gathering, but then this whole pandemic happened and it's made things a whole lot harder. So what are they doing now? Well, the Secretary of State requires physical signatures, meaning you can't collect these things online. So they're encouraging people to download and print out a petition, sign it, and mail it back to them. They'll also mail petitions to people if they ask for one. You know who else is on the ballot and causing a whole lot of controversy? A state rep from Portland who we just found out is facing some sexual harassment and hostile workplace complaints from 7 different people. This is Representative Diego Hernandez from Oregon's 47th District. The Interim House Conduct Committee met this afternoon to talk about these allegations against him. We didn't get a whole bunch of details. There aren't a lot right now because the investigation is still ongoing, but here's what they did say.
There are incidences of verbal sexual harassment as well as disclosures of sexual harassment that involves contact, that would involve touching, as well as instances that would constitute, again, just on its face of what we've received, could constitute how the rule would define creating a larger environment, a hostile environment, again, based in professional settings related to the building.
So the committee voted to require Hernandez to give 24 hours notice before arriving at the Capitol and banned him from any contact with the accusers. Now, Hernandez sent us a statement. It said, "I have no idea what the concerns raised are or by whom. I do know that there has been an organized campaign against me recently to get me out of the office I was duly elected to, and I was threatened that this would happen if I didn't resign." He also says women's allegations should be heard and investigated, and that he's asking people to withhold judgment until the investigation is complete. Meantime, the House Speaker just sent out a statement saying Hernandez should resign. Now, if you recognized him, the picture we showed you before, we've talked about him on the story before. He was accused of domestic violence back in March. So apparently, Portland politicians have forgotten the basic rule of mailers. Rule number 1, make sure that the person you say is endorsing you on the mailer actually endorsed you. Mayor Wheeler broke that one last week when he put out a mailer claiming that City Commissioner Chloe Eudaly had endorsed him. She has not. And now, former mayor and current city council candidate Sam Adams has broken rule number 2. Don't use an 8-year-old quote to talk yourself up. Alex Zielinski from the Portland Mercury tweeted this picture out. The blurb on the mailer has a Mercury quote saying, "Sam knows how to get stuff done." She adds that quote was from 2012. And even a little bit more awkward here, the Mercury is actually endorsing his opponent, Chloe Eudaly, for city council position number 4. So the former mayor used an old quote from a paper that isn't even endorsing him. Again, Election Day is May 19th, and as I said before, you should receive your ballot by now. You should have it. You don't need to put a stamp on it this year. You just drop it on in that mailbox, and your civic duties are complete.
50 years after the Kent State Massacre, a reminder from the KGW Vault of how Portland reacted. And hair color, black and yellow. Height, 2 inches. Be on the lookout for a swarm of murderers in the United States for the first time. A bit dramatic? Yes. When the story continues, also yes.
All right, we are still getting questions from you about the stimulus payment, so let's answer some. This person wants to know, hey Dan, I just got my $1,200 stimulus check, and I'm trying to understand if this is a tax credit, a loan on my tax refund for 2020, or just $1,200 free cash. Can you help clear that up? Thank you so much for the question. All right, here's the answer. Your stimulus payment is an advance payment of a refundable credit on your 2020 tax return. So the good news, although the payment is only made to you if your income is below the $75,000 for a single filer or $150,000 for a married or joint filer, you will not be required to repay the money if your income goes up in 2020. So in short, the money is yours to keep. Keep sending in those questions using the hashtag HeyDan. We will do our very best to answer them.
Okay. All right. Stop what you're doing. This is important. We want you to be on the lookout for a new criminal lurking the skies of the Northwest. He has many aliases, including the Asian giant hornet, the Vespa mandarinia. You probably know him best as the murder hornet. He's been hanging around Asia for a long time, but Keely Chalmers found out he's just been spotted in Washington for the first time.
It's called the Asian giant hornet. It can be as big as 2 inches long, and it can be as nasty as it looks. Just ask Washington beekeeper Ted McFall.
I showed up to this, it was a very healthy beehive, and the heads were chopped off, the abdomens were cut. Something really just slaughtered the entire colony.
Our news partner KXL interviewed McFall this morning. He said he made this discovery last November. A month later, he would learn the Asian giant hornet had been sighted in nearby Blaine, Washington, marking the first ever sighting of the deadly invader in the U.S.
That's when the light came on, and I realized that that solved the mystery of what could have done, what could have happened.
Since then, the Washington Department of Agriculture has confirmed 4 sightings of the world's largest wasp in both Blaine and Bellingham. Canada discovered it on Vancouver Island last year. The red dots on this map show confirmed sightings of the hornet. The yellow dots, which stretch all the way down to Portland, show unconfirmed reports.
You know, it is certainly something to be concerned about and something to be watchful for.
Eric Lee Motter is a bee researcher with the Xerces Society. He spent years studying the Asian giant hornet in Japan.
But this is sort of an unprecedented situation to find it here on our shores.
He says if the hornet does become established in our area, there are ways to protect honeybee hives with traps or cages. Practices already followed in Asia, but he worries about other insects.
We have no idea what this means for native insects, native wild insects, what this means for our native butterflies, for our bumblebees. I think that's the bigger question.
As for the risk to humans,
they can be dangerous if they sting in large, repetitive attacks. But those attacks, even in Asia, are fairly rare.
Lee Motter and other experts are asking people to keep an eye out for the hornets, but make sure you know what you're looking for.
We see people mistaking newly emerging bumblebee queens now, mistaking those as the Asian giant hornet, and unfortunately, in some cases, even killing those bumblebee queens.
The bottom line, take time to understand the threat. If you see something that looks like a hornet, report it. But also understand we don't yet know if they're here for good.
I don't think there's a need for panic at all.
Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
All right, authorities say that the murder hornet has not been spotted in Oregon yet. By the way, kind of a misleading name there, the murder hornet. They actually are known that because they kill bees mostly. As you can hear there, they do hurt people as well, but bees are mainly the culprit here. And we looked this up, and it's true. Bees don't speak English, so it's kind of hard to prove intent. Hey, let's take a little trip into the KGW Vault today, because today marks 50 years since the Kent State Massacre. The Ohio National Guard shot and killed 4 unarmed students protesting the Vietnam War. That set off even more protests across the country, including at Portland State University, where students rioted in the streets. We opened the KGW Vault and found this report from legendary KGW anchorman Ivan Smith.
9 barricades and a plastic hospital tent erected here at Portland State University campus resulted in a confrontation between students and the Portland Tac Squad. When it was over, 30 student demonstrators and 2 policemen were injured. The students were on a 3-day strike protesting police action at Kent State. They were ordered to remove the barricades and a plastic hospital tent. They refused, so the police did. That brought more student reaction. Where only a few students and some outsiders had been involved, now there was 3,000. They marched on City Hall demanding to see Mayor Schrunk. He refused, but offered to meet with student representatives in his office. After waiting for 2 hours, they returned to the park blocks. They said more demonstrations would follow, and they did.
I love the KGW Vault. We know a lot of you do as well. We love doing the segments, so if you have an idea for us, email the story at kgw.com. Send me a message on Facebook or Twitter using the hashtag HeyDan.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Safino, and you know what? There's a meteor shower that happens early tomorrow morning that's interesting, and not just because you might be able to see it. If you do see it, and it can produce some really great streaks across the sky, like this one, which was shot a few years ago over Devil's Tower in Wyoming, a really dramatic picture with the meteor. You can see that streak across the top of the screen there, but also you've got the Milky Way, and you've got Devil's Tower, Wyoming, which is really cool to see as well. That picture taken by David Kingham. So what's the deal with the Eta Aquarids, and why does it have such a weird name? Well, meteor showers are named after the part of the sky or the constellation from which they seem to emanate. So in this case, and they weren't discovered until the 1800s, they seem to come from the Eta Aquarid constellation in the sky. Now, it's a little bit tough to see because it's low in the eastern sky right before sunrise, but if you have a clear sky tomorrow morning, check it out, because see that streak across the sky? You can get some really long streaks because they travel fairly quickly, and they can have color too because they're what we call earth grazers, which means they graze through the top of the atmosphere kind of the same way a rock can skim across the pond of water. So where do these guys come from? That's the other part of this story that makes this meteor shower so interesting. They are actually debris, little crumbles from Halley's Comet, believe it or not. Now, this is an image of Halley's Comet taken by NASA when it was last visited our planet, which was back in 1986. Dan, do you remember where you were in 1986? I remember trying to see Halley's Comet in 1986.
I do remember
kind of fun to see.
I do remember always calling it Halley's Comet. Is it Halley's?
It is Halley's.
Oh,
it's
man,
named after
like
Sir
Halley's.
Edmund Halley. Everybody says Halley's, but it's actually Halley. So it comes back in 41 years, 2061. So in case we're all around, we can look forward to that. Now, the last time it was here in 1986, that was the worst visibility of Halley's Comet in 2,000 years because it was on the opposite side of the sun. So we didn't really catch a good view in 1986, but we will in 2071. Earliest sighting goes back to the ancient Greeks, 466 BC. And the meteor shower, to come full circle, that we can see tomorrow morning are the little breadcrumbs left in the river of debris left by Halley's Comet in its orbit around our star, the sun. So there you go.
Hey, no offense to the Halley family. I'm sorry I've been giving the Haleys the credit all of these years. Matt Safino, thank you so much.
You and millions others.
Exactly,
no
yeah. Hey, all the millions watching us tonight. That's an accurate number, right? I'm reading comments after the break, so pick up your phone, use the hashtag HeyDan, send me something to read. I'll talk to you in just a few minutes. All right, let's talk about some comments. Gail Johnson saying, love the show. We work at a bank. How about a small shout out? Hi, Gail. Also, Randy writing in, how about a little behind the scenes peek into what goes on putting together a show like The Story every night? We had some really good articles written about us from like a kind of industry stuff. Other people in news, the Cronkite News Lab wrote something up about how we do this show and interviewed all of our producers and editors and everybody. Maybe I'll post that. You guys can check it out. You might enjoy it. Had some people talking about our murder Hornet story. One guy, there was a little super on the bottom of the screen that said, be on the lookout, B-E-E. He said, bees and hornets are totally different things, dude. And it was a lazy pun. Forgive us. And then Judy said, did you not listen to your own story? You finished by saying the bees are the culprits. They are the victims, doofus. Judy, you have a way with words. It's very nice. We made a mistake. They are the victims. The murder hornets kill the bees. Be on the lookout, bees. If you know any bees, please tell them that and tell them to watch the story. We'll be back here tomorrow. The news at 6:30 is next. Thanks for being with us.